2021 is looking very, very promising in terms of MMORPG releases, but I still get asked every single week, every single month, what MMOs should I be playing right this very minute? And more specifically, what free-to-play MMOs should I be playing right this minute? Because I know buy-to-play MMOs like Black Desert or the Elder Scrolls Online and pay-to-play MMOs like Final Fantasy XIV and World of Warcraft are just too much for people to fork out money for, and I completely understand. So, it is February 4th as of recording this right this very second, and I'm gonna go ahead here and list the 10 top free-to-play MMORPGs that are playable right this very second that you can go ahead and download and play that are completely free until New World, until Blue Protocol, until TL Origin, until Project BBQ, Elion, until all these new MMOs come out. Before we go any further though, I do want to note that I will be giving away a single copy of any MMORPG that you want. World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV, the Elder Scrolls Online, the Guild Wars 2 expansions, anything. All you have to do is go down into the comment section below, leave a comment stating what MMO you'd like and why you'd like it, and be actively subscribed to the channel. That means clicking that little subscribe button, because I can tell if you're subscribed or not, and this is only for our subscribers. Also note that we stream every single week over on our Twitch channel at twitch.tv/MMOBite. If you want to go ahead and join us in our streams, you're more than welcome to. We stream every Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Not only do we stream brand new games as they come out, closed beta tests for games, not only do we hold giveaways on the streams, but I mean, you get to hang out with MRSSTIX and I, so yeah. Now, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into what is arguably the #1 free-to-play MMORPG on the market, and that is Guild Wars 2. MRSSTIX and I have poured hundreds of hours into Guild Wars 2 over the course of the last 8 months streaming over on Twitch, and let me reassure you guys right now, Guild Wars 2 is by far one of the highest quality free MMOs you will find. Granted, you are required to purchase the expansion content, so to play through the most recent content, you are going to be required to spend, I think it was only like $20, $30, but the entire game from level 1 all the way through until max level is completely free. All of the base regions are completely free. You can run all the dungeons, you can do literally everything completely free. It's just if you want the most current content, which you really don't need, but it's still hundreds of hours of content that you wouldn't have access to if you didn't purchase it. Now, Guild Wars 2 is a completely open world MMORPG that utilizes segregated zones, which means that the world is open, that you can freely explore everything, but these zones are instanced off from one another. The zones are enormous, don't get me wrong, and the zones themselves house hundreds of players, so it is a full MMO. It's just that you have to go through a little loading screen, and the zones themselves are connected via the loading screens, and I mean, like, really, it only takes a couple seconds. Guild Wars 2 also has a very healthy population, numbering in the hundreds of thousands still to this day. There is a brand new upcoming expansion for the game, End of Dragons, coming out sometime later this year. And with that, I really feel like there is no better time to jump into Guild Wars 2 than right now. You have months to go ahead to clear all the content that is readily available to get to a point that you can be happy with, comfortable with, in preparation, in anticipation for End of Dragons. And trust me, you are going to want to play End of Dragons. Guild Wars 2 has an incredible story. You can literally ask anyone what features they think Guild Wars 2 excels at, and they will list the story as one of them, no doubt. Speaking of MMOs with good stories though, Star Wars: The Old Republic is probably the deepest, well, I say the deepest, but it has, I'll go on a limb here and say one of the 2 deepest stories I've come across in an MMO. As a huge story buff, having a story that you can sit through for tens of hours, hundreds of hours even, really captivates me, keeps me enthralled, keeps me motivated to keep playing through the game. And Star Wars: The Old Republic is one of only a handful of games that have actually maintained my attention. The others being, of course, the Elder Scrolls Online, Guild Wars 2, and Final Fantasy XIV. Now, I know you might be thinking that Star Wars: The Old Republic looks a little bit dated, and yes, that is true. Graphically, Star Wars: The Old Republic does not look as good as something like Terra, something like Blade and Soul, something like Guild Wars 2, but at the same time, Star Wars: The Old Republic is not an Eastern MMO, and therefore the focus of the game was not actually on the aesthetic look and feel of the game, but rather core mechanics that make up the game that are much deeper than the shallowness that is often prevalent in Eastern MMOs. MMOs. Like, don't get me wrong, you can create a decent looking character. The environments you get to explore all over the galaxy, all over the universe are really well done. The voice acting in this game is absolutely top tier, but the character models, you know, like, just look at them. While I am a fan of a lot of different aspects of Star Wars The Old Republic, the character models are not one of them. Like Guild Wars 2, Star Wars The Old Republic also utilizes segregated zones. I feel like most open world MMOs actually utilize segregated zones. I mean, even Final Fantasy XIV, even the Elder Scrolls Online, even Blade and Soul does. One of the few games that actually come to mind that do not utilize a segregated zone is Perfect World, World of Warcraft, and yeah, that's literally all that comes to mind right off the top of my head. Given that Star Wars The Old Republic actually launched onto Steam in the last year, their population numbers are also looking better. So you have more active players to play with, you have tons of stuff to do. Granted, like Guild Wars 2, you are required to purchase at least a single time the later game content, and again, I know that that might not necessarily be possible for players, but realistically, you're not required to purchase this to play through the game regardless. Now, something that does not require any purchase, well, okay, no, wait, let me backtrack a little bit there. Okay, Blade and Soul technically does not require a single purchase of anything to successfully play the game. However, it does have a tendency to push some pay to win in terms of being a competitive player. Nevertheless, MRSSSTIX and I have always had immense amount of fun when we played Blade and Soul. We have never tackled this competitively. We have done some PvP, but typically we tend to stay out of the PvP, even though PvP in Blade and Soul is incredibly fun. But we know how much money you tactically have to invest into the game if you really, really want to be competitive. And I don't think I've tried to be competitive since all the way back in World of Warcraft years ago. And even then, like, I did arenas in World of Warcraft, and I probably made it to maybe like 2,400 tops, which really isn't that impressive. I think it's, what, like maybe top 10% of PvPers, but like when the top 10 consists of literally tens of thousands of players, it's really not that impressive. Now, Blade and Soul is by far one of the better looking games in this list. The art is done actually by the very same guy that did the Magna Carta games, and man, they were one of my favorite IPs on the PlayStation. This game, it looks beautiful. Granted, they have like ridiculously long fingers, and these South Korean MMO developers with their obsession for long fingers really creep me out. But outside of that, the character models, the scenery, everything about this game is absolutely beautiful. We are still, granted, waiting on the Unreal Engine 4 overhaul, but I feel like maybe one day we might end up getting it, hopefully sometime this year. Blade and Soul also has arguably one of the best combat systems in a free MMO. People often put Black Desert and Blade and Soul at the top of the spectrum when comparing other action MMOs, because really, you don't get much better than these other than maybe Terra. I have always personally been of the opinion that Terra has better action combat, but that could be because I was introduced to action combat in an MMO via Terra initially, all the way back in like 2012. Now, admittedly, Blade and Soul's population has been on the decline for years now, and that is because NCSoft themselves are a terrible developer and a terrible publisher. They have been literally digging a hole for the game its entire life, and it has never recovered. But if you have never played the game before, you absolutely need to. Not only does it have an amazing storyline, admittedly it has really, really terrible voice acting, it has great combat, and it's just a lot of fun to explore and a lot of fun to power through. Speaking of South Korean MMOs though, Lost Ark is another South Korean MMORPG that I really enjoy. Now, Amazon Game Studios have confirmed that they are going to be publishing Lost Ark outside of South Korea in North America and Europe. This might very well be their first big game release pretty much ever. But as of the 4th of February 2021, when this video is being recorded, I'm not saying March, I'm not saying June, I'm not saying October when you're potentially watching this, but as of right now, the game is only available in Japan, South Korea, and Russia, so a VPN is required to play it, and then you need to go ahead and apply a patch over that. And me personally, I and a lot of other MMO YouTubers actually use exit lag because it is by far the best VPN in terms of connectivity. Connecting to their servers for any foreign MMO gives you substantially better ping. It allows you access to games that you wouldn't otherwise be capable of accessing. And honestly, I have tried over 6 different VPN providers, and there is not a better one out there, at least with regards to MMOs. Now, Lost Ark is actually a top-down isometric MMO. It is the only top-down isometric MMO actually included in this list, but just because it is from an isometric perspective does not mean that it is any less of an MMO. It is just as large, it is just as beautiful. Its combat is superior to the majority of MMOs still available on the market, and it's got a story that at times literally takes 30-40 minutes to get through. So if you're a big story buff, then this game right here, man. Next, we are going to be talking about Soul Worker Online. I pretty much always include Soul Worker in my top videos because to me, this is one of the better hub MMOs out there. Yes, there are other ones like Phantasy Star Online 2, Dungeon Fighter Online, Vindictus, Critica, but personally, I have always been drawn to Soul Worker specifically because it is an anime MMO. I am a huge fan of anime MMOs, but more than anything, the combat in Soul Worker is just so good. Being able to combo all of your abilities, like I have not encountered combat in an anime MMO outside of Phantasy Star Online 2 that is as good as Soul Workers. And I know traditionally people aren't really all that fond of hub MMOs, but Soul Worker is larger, it is more filled than what we're typically used to. See, typically in hub MMOs, there is a single main hub, and then you take missions, you go to like a mission board, and then you depart. It's that simple. But Soul Worker, it has a minimum of at least 5 different quest hubs. There is no main quest hub. You have a variety of different quest hubs, all with their own unique levels, and subsequently instances that you can go in and participate in, which means that literally every single different hub has players that are out, that are engaging in content, that you can talk to, that you can group with. You're not stuck in one single environment for the entirety of the game. And that sense of diversity really spoke to me because I love getting to explore different regions in games, and hub MMOs always emphasizing that one single hub really turned me off for the most part. Now, Soul Worker admittedly isn't really nearly as populated as the majority of games in this list, but that doesn't mean that this is not any less a really, really good MMO. Speaking of anime titles and good MMOs though, Mabinogi is by far the most unique anime MMO you will ever play. Like Soul Worker, Mabinogi is a game that I typically tend to reuse in a lot of my top videos because really it is just so unique. It is different to almost anything you've ever played. Anyone that has played Mabinogi knows what I'm talking about. The sheer freedom you have in Mabinogi to just go out and do whatever you want, to just go off the beaten path, to just get preoccupied for hours on end, not participating in the story, not participating or engaging in combat, just doing other stuff. And that is just something that you don't typically get to do. That is a type of freedom that isn't very prominent, that isn't really found outside of this game. Like there are plenty of you guys out there that enjoy slice of life anime, right? This is essentially the MMO equivalent of a slice of life anime. Granted, the game is definitely only going to appeal to players that aren't really all that picky in terms of aesthetic, because if you look at Mabinogi, it definitely looks its age. This game is almost 2 decades old, but not only is its graphical style unique, not only is the game itself unique, not only is the combat unique, but if you have not played this game, if you are not playing this game, then you are totally missing out, because this game is deeper than almost any other out there. Admittedly, it is a Nexon game, so you do have to weigh the pros and cons of playing a Nexon game, and as it is a Nexon game, the population is kinda low, as all Nexon games are. Then we have RuneScape, and old school RuneScape. This is a game that, much like Mabinogi, provides you a ton of freedom. It also has over 100,000 players playing at any given moment of the day, so you know this game is actively played. It has tens of thousands of people watching over on Twitch. It has dedicated YouTubers that have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. This is in the top 5 most populated MMOs currently available online, and yeah, like Mabinogi, this game definitely looks dated. It does, it really does. I played both RuneScape and old school RuneScape, and while RuneScape definitely does look better, it still cannot hold a candle to any of the games literally released after 2010. But then it doesn't need to, because this is a game that already has an active player base, a very loyal active player base at that, and has actually expanded cross-platform onto mobile devices, and recently also launched onto Steam. So this game's population is continuing to rise every single year. Now, if there are millions of people playing this game, there has got to be a reason for it, right? Secret World Legends is definitely a more unique game. It's not your typical high fantasy setting. It's not necessarily a sci-fi MMO or an anime MMO. This is actually set in the modern day. There are people with rifles, there are cars, normal buildings, people dressed in average day clothes. This is actually a setting that is not really replicated outside of this game, typically because, I don't know, I guess developers tend to sway more to having a fantasy setting because it's more popular, but that just makes this game all the more unique. And the fact that the entire story for the game, even the side quests, are all fully voiced is incredible. Now, yeah, this game does look a little bit dated as well, and the combat being tab target is, like, I'm not gonna say slow, but it is a little on the slower side. Nevertheless, the game itself is so large, it is so open, it is so filled with content. If you're interested in pursuing a game for its story, for its world, then this is something you cannot pass up. Now, its population has been on the decline for the last few years as well, and I don't know exactly how long this game is going to remain around. So if you're looking to try this out for whatever reason, if the gameplay playing right now looks intriguing to you, if you're a fan of puzzles, if you're a fan of open world games or games set in the present day, then what are you waiting for? Go ahead and try Secret World Legends. Now, it's something that actually combines both the anime and the sci-fi aesthetic together is Phantasy Star Online 2. This is a game that I have dedicated hundreds of hours to over the course of the last 4 years. I played it all the way back when it was a Japanese exclusive, and then went ahead and played it on PC when it launched over in North America last year. Now, PSO2 New Genesis is actually going into closed beta testing, and I really hope I get into it. Admittedly, I haven't actually applied for the closed beta yet, so I probably should, because I feel like I'm going to need to do a dedicated video on the closed beta test and the differences it has from PSO2. But anyway, I'm going off topic. PSO2, like Soul Worker Online, is actually a hub MMO, but it is a hub MMO on a much larger scale. See, in Soul Worker, you're limited to having 4 people in your party, whereas in PSO2, you can actually have 12 people in your party. That makes it much larger. But at the same time, while you can have 12 people in your party, there are missions, specific missions that take place that allow you to go even further beyond. And you can have like literally huge raid groups going on. And that is some of the most fun that both MRSSSTIX and I had in the game. Now, granted, yes, there is only one single hub. There is the ship that you're aboard, but the ship has a lot of different areas to explore. And the game itself, once you leave the ship, has a surplus of very varied environments. And admittedly, the bulk of the game does actually take place around the gameplay aspect of it, and thankfully PSO2 does not disappoint. The combat in PSO2 has been argued to be some of the best in the entire MMO genre, and while I wouldn't go as far as to say that it's better than Guild Wars 2 or Terra or Blade and Soul or Black Desert, it is definitely up there, and it is far better than any other anime MMO out there except for Soul Worker, and that's just my opinion, mind you. Everyone's opinions differ. Now, speaking of the best combat in an MMO, Terra, right here, in my opinion, had the best combat in an MMORPG for going on 9 years now. I don't know how they did this. I don't know why this type of combat has not been replicated since, but they need to. Like Bluehole, the people that are making Ilion also made Terra, and when they decided they wanted to make Ilion, which was originally titled Ascent Infinite Realm, they decided to make Ascent Infinite Realm tab target. And I sat here at the time and I was like, why would you make an MMO that literally set the bar for action MMOs and then make its sequel, the successor to such an amazing combat style, such an amazing system, a tab target MMO? Like, and the tab target combat in Air was terrible. Thankfully, they went ahead and they completely overhauled the combat system when they rebranded into Ilion, and you know what? Admittedly, Ilion does have a lot better combat, but in my opinion, it is still not as good as Terra's. Graphically, Ilion does look a lot better than Terra. Terra looks beautiful. It has always looked very beautiful, but this game was released like a decade or more ago, and it is definitely beginning to show its age. It has been showing its age for years now. Now, much like the majority of the other free MMOs in this list, Terra does feature segregated zones, which means that the zones are cut off from one another through a loading screen, but you can still navigate the world effortlessly. There are plenty of other players players out doing things, at least on the servers that are more populated. Now, when NMAS Entertainment published the game in North America, the population for the North American incarnation of Terra was actually on the decline. Thankfully, however, Gameforge recently acquired publishing rights for the game within North America and have since merged North America and Europe together, so the server populations are much healthier than they have been in years. Now, it is worth noting that those 10 MMOs in specific are 10 MMOs that I would play, that if I were bored, I would go ahead and I would boot up, I would log in and I would start playing them, because I have all 10 of them still installed on my computer right this very minute. Now, there are other free-to-play MMOs out there that are really good, such as Albion Online, such as Flife. Some people might think Arcade, they'd be wrong. Like, it is all completely subjective. It is what you think, and that is what this video is. This video is what I think are the 10 best MMOs that you should play in February 2021, starting off the new year. Now, I am curious what 10 free MMOs you think are the best in 2021 though, and I would love to know why you think those titles are better than the titles I listed here, or that other people listed, because there are plenty of good games out there. Neverwinter, Star Trek Online, that I haven't really dedicated much time to, maybe 3, maybe 5 hours, and if I have a reason to push further through it, then we might. Anyway guys, that is everything I wanted to talk about today. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you guys next time.
Someday soon I'm gonna make it. Yeah, all hard work's gonna be worth it. Ooh,